Hello, and welcome back to another Pen Talk. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for following me in my exploration of the wide world of pens. And yes, this is not a pen that I bought. This is a pen that I got in a trade with Dean, and I'm impressed very much with the pen. Miss Sizemore and Mr. Seymour are very happy with the pen also. It is certainly turntable worthy, and I think it deserves a little bit of an extra classic look with this pen stand. We've got a little bit of sunlight coming in, comes and goes. A little bit of a cloudy day today. Hopefully that shows off the resin a little bit more, because it is the iced Mocha resin, or some may see it as the Niango finish that Pen BBS calls it. Whatever it is, it's quite nice. Dean loves it, and I'm very happy that she sent me this pen. It's a large pen, very well made, as all Rangas are. And we're going to compare it to other Rangas, and we're going to talk a little bit about buying Ranga pens. Yeah, that's something that might be of interest to you. We're going to just get a little bit closer to the pen so we can appreciate that resin a little bit more and see how the light plays on it. A very nice cracked ice finish with a range from dark, almost black chips to a very light colored, almost on the bay side. So stay tuned for more explorations of this pen, comparing to other Ranga pens, talking about the Ranga brand. Bye. So the first thing to notice about the 8B is it's a big pen. Ranga said it's 6 inches in length. I measure this as 6 1/4, so it's even longer than they discuss. These are all handmade pens, and they're going to have variations in them, but that's the nature of a handmade pen. There's not many around that you can really pick up at a reasonable price, and Ranga is one of them. So even though it's a big pen, it's not a heavy pen. The cap comes off in one turn, which is great. And we'll see a 1.1 millimeter Jowo stub. You can tell Jowo nib by the feed. When we look at some other Rangas, we'll see the Bach nibs that they used, and it has a different feed. But this finish is just nice, and it works well in this design. The cap is engraved with the company name. This finial screws in to hold in the clip. We'll look inside the cap with our LED. Let's do that now. I've darkened the room as much as I can in the middle of the day. So if we play the LED on it, we'll see a little bit more detail come out. And it also adds a little bit of a different colored wavelength of light that may help you appreciate this resin even more for those few people that may not be familiar with it. And if you look inside the cap, we'll see that standard machining, very clean. I've read that they cut the threads by hand. Everything fits together very, very well. That seam is you hardly feel that seam, and it just fits well. Hope you've enjoyed this little look. One easy way to tell Jowo from Bach nibs is the Jowo feed. Here, it's just a unique design. The Bach feed at the top is a very distinctive design also. If you can't tell by the fact that the nibs are designed differently, because somebody could, redesign it, get a nib without any design on it and engrave their own on it. So the feed is a better way to tell which nib you might have. Here are my 3 Rangas. the 8B, the one I can't pronounce, and Model 3. Here's where I did reviews of those pens. There'll be a link in the description if you would like to see those in-depth reviews. So one of the things that they share in common is the two with the clips have exactly the same clip, except this one has Ranga laser etched into it. This one has no branding on it. Nice design clip, functional, works well. None of these have any cap bands. Ebonite matte finish, acrylic matte finish, acrylic gloss finish. So you get to see that variations. And these are kind of in that green family, and I do enjoy both of these. This one is currently inked. This one is not. I had some trouble with the ink and a little bit of growth, so I cleaned it out and letting it set to let it sterilize for a while. But all these three pens are nice because they're very good sized, fit well in the hand. One thing they share in common also is they post relatively high. The cap doesn't come down far on the barrel. They're relatively secure, but they're not the best posting pens. And I think that partly has to do with the nature of the design and the intention, and maybe posting is not a feature that they strive for, at least in these three examples. So let's take a look at the sections and nibs. We'll find some interesting evolutions there. So one of the differences is these are Bach nibs, Jowo nib. I think at the time Bach was their alternate nib choice. Jowo has now taken up that place. All these three have fairly long sections, so it gives you a lot of places to keep your fingers. This is a more traditional hourglass shape, and these two both have a flare out at the end towards the nib. I find all three of these sections very, very comfortable. These are very easy pens to use for extended writing sessions. The weighting is good, unposted, and I enjoy writing with them, and the nibs work very, very well. Well, now it's time for the editorial and another writing sample. So overall, I think this is a very nice pen. Those threads are interesting. One turn. When you cap the pen, you feel a little resistance, and there's a last eighth of a turn that really secures the cap. Kind of like the threading on the F3 that I liked. So it takes a little bit of effort to start the cap to unscrew, but once you do, it takes one turn. It fits extremely well in the hand. We'll give you the dimensions. And we'll also give you the dimensions of that section. Very nice shape and design. I like the nib. I like the way it writes. So if you wanted a Ranga pen, how would you buy one? Well, there's a lot of options. First is to go to the Ranga website. Here's what that looks like. The other thing to do is you could go to some U.S. sellers, like Peyton Street, which is also on eBay. Here's their homepage on eBay. I'll give you a link to them in the description. Or you could go to Fountain Pen Revolution, or you could go and try to subscribe to the group buy email, which comes out about once a month. Here's an example of that. So lots of ways, but I think there's great value in this pen. Hand-turned acrylic, really nice acrylics, very well done. Nice German nib. And it's priced, I would say, about half the price of comparable pens from other makers. When you buy it from India, it may take a while to show up. Could be 4, 6, or 8 weeks. And the last time I did it, the tracking wasn't great, but the pen did show up, and that was what really counts. So, enough of the talk. Let's write some more with this ink mix, which I really like. But it's supposedly 2 Birmingham Pen Company inks, eroded bronze, which I have, and antique sepia, which I do not. Here's what they look like on the website. But I can't figure out those colors by looking at the ink color or looking at the chromatography. So when I first looked at the chromatography of the mix, I didn't quite see the colors, but there is green from the eroded bronze ink, which is up here at the very top. And this is more like that antique sepia color. It's just that the green is a lot more intense than I expected. So maybe Dean used a different batch of eroded bronze that had a little bit more green in than the one that I have, which to me has a little bit more blue in it than green. But it's still a nice mix. I got to start mixing inks. So that's one of the, to me, is the art form of mixing inks, is you never know what you're going to get. At least I certainly don't. Maybe Dean, as an artist, is much better at understanding colors and mixing them and coming up with something different. But I really like the way this pen writes, and I only have a few drops of ink in here, so let's get to the writing. This is very smooth. As I've talked about before, 1.1 millimeter stub I think is a great pen. It gives you some nice line variation. You can see the horizontal lines can be quite thin, fine to extra fine, and the vertical lines can be quite thick, broad to almost a double broad. And if you want to think about a 1.1, if that was a regular tipped nib, it would probably be a double broad. So let's rate this pen. I'm going to give it a 9.9. It gets a check for incredible nice build and design. It gets a check for a good nib. Other than that, there's really no flaws that I can find. It gets a check for the good size, and it gets a check for value. Why isn't it a 10? Because to me it just doesn't quite make a 10, but it comes awfully close. So you can see how this compares to this broad Bach nib in the Aberjan. I cannot pronounce it. But with a nib like this, the horizontals are going to be quite wide. Vertical's a little bit wider. This nib actually has a little bit of bounce to it. So no pressure, a little bit more pressure. I think you can see that open up. A very nice nib. I like it a lot. We've reached the end of this video. Thank you all very much for watching. May you find a pen that you love writing with and just write. Enjoy putting that nib on paper, making some marks. Hope this video finds you safe, healthy, and happy, enjoying your pens, enjoying your day. That's what it's all about. So this is the end. And we're going to say bye. Yes, I really do like this nib and this ink.